Hi, you non-gamblers, you skilled players of FanDuel and DraftKings. Welcome back to yet another episode of Burnt Coverage, another episode of Burnt Coverage, tight end edition, week 10. I am your host, Joel.
And I'm Curtis.
So, we all know that you like tight ends, so who do you like?
Well, there's a couple of tight ends I like, but I don't feel comfortable talking about them on camera, just in case authorities get involved.
Just filming it.
But, I will say, there's one tight end I've had my eye on, and it's certainly one that could be easily broken. And that's Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed's 4,600 in DraftKings and 5,800 in FanDuel. This week, playing my quarterback pick, Kirk Cousins. Oh, spoiler! You already watched that one. This week, Jordan Reed is playing against the New Orleans Saints, who might be the worst defense in the league.
Might be? No question.
Yeah, in earlier segments we discussed how bad the New Orleans defense is. New Orleans is... Oh, by the way, New Orleans is never going to be our pick for defense to play this week. I can pretty much put that out
Absolutely.
there now, I think. Jordan Reed has had no fewer than 6 targets in games he's played in. However, he has missed some time. That's what Jordan Reed does. He either puts up great stat lines or doesn't play at all. This week, he's playing, so that means great stat line. Last week, he had one of his worst weeks of the year, where he only had 16 yards, but he had 5 catches and a touchdown. So that right there is 12 points on his 4,600. So that's his floor. So get ready for a lot more throwing against the New Orleans offense that has been extremely hot recently. He's going to be putting up a big score. Jordan Reed is the number one option with there being no ground game right now. The 3-headed kitten of Chris Thompson and Alfred Morris and the guy I can never remember, Matt Jones. So I really see Jordan Reed just continuing to dominate targets, especially in the red zone, and continue to give you fantasy goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. New Orleans is giving up the most fantasy points to opposing tight ends and the most receiving touchdowns in the NFL. They've given up 24 passing touchdowns this year. New Orleans is a terrible defense. It's a good offense, terrible defense, which leads to some high-scoring shootouts, and this might be one of them. Jordan Reed, yeah, absolutely.
And he's actually, I think, helped by the re-emergence of Deshaun Jackson, if you can call it that.
What re-emergence? There's no re-emergence.
He's on the field.
He had 2 catches for 15 yards last week.
I think he'll do better this week.
Well, you couldn't do worse.
Well, I think he could do better this week. He's going to get... But
he's either going to get 2 for 15 or 2 for 120.
If you can stretch the field, it definitely helps your tight ends. I mean, look at Martellus Bennett in Chicago, like having Alshon Jeffrey or Brandon Marshall back in the day.
Yeah. Deshaun sucks. He's in a gang. Anyway, I like Greg Olsen this week, Carolina Panthers. He's playing in Tennessee, the Titans of Tennessee. So Greg Olsen has had 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games, with at least 65 receiving yards. And Tennessee has not been very good defending the tight end, having given up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Greg Olsen has at least 60 yards in 6 of his last 8 games, while catching over 100 yards in 2 of those games. So for the price of $6,300 on the duel and $6,300 on DraftKings, yeah, look at that. I really think he's definitely the high end. He's number 2 tight end this week. But he's much cheaper than number 1, who we all know is Gronk. And he's the number 1 receiving threat on the 8-0 Carolina Panthers. This Greg Olsen.
I feel like this echoes something that I heard someone say, God, was it a week ago? When I was the one that said, play Greg Olsen. And I get a lot of flack for that. But, thanks for listening to me finally.
Well, why did I give you flack for that?
Receiver.
Why did I give you flack for that? Because who was the tight end that I told I told my loyal listeners and viewers to play last week. That was Garrett Selleck. Who? Garrett Selleck, tight end for the San Francisco 49ers. What did he do? Do you know his stats?
2 catches, 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns for how much? He was the cheapest player across the board in both leagues, DraftKings and FanDuel. And you mocked me. You're like, oh, Garrett Selleck, you're crazy. You're crazy. I'd rather spend $5,000 more on Greg Olsen. Well, you know what? What happened? Nothing. Garrett Selleck, if you played Garrett Selleck, you won money. And if you played Garrett Selleck, it's because you heard me. You're welcome. F you.
This is just like my Tim Wright play, where I said play Tim Wright.
I don't remember that episode at all.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't. And Joel went batshit.
That was the last time Brian Cranston had a good week in the NFL.
Brian Walters. But, yeah, okay, so where were we? Greg Olsen?
Yeah, Greg Olsen.
Congratulations on your bullshit tight end
last week.
Greg Olsen, as I said last week, is a good play. It will continue to be a good play for the rest of the season. There's nothing to fear with Greg Olsen. The only problem he'll ever get into is that the Panthers are way up. But the way their offense runs, they're rarely way up. I know, yes, you just saw them way up against the Packers. But what happened with the Packers, you saw an elite quarterback bring them back into the game. The run defense, and they do have a good run game. They love to keep it in Cam's hands. They love to keep it in Jonathan Stewart's hands. And they love to keep it close to the vest with Greg Olsen. So I'm never going to argue against Greg Olsen.
No, I think this is going to be a very close game. I think it's going to be a good game. I think actually Tennessee might upset them.
You're foolish.
No, I'm telling you. I'm not.
You're not calling it.
I'm not calling it, but I think it'll be a very competitive game. This will probably be one of the better games this week. I'm looking forward to watching this game.
There's a better chance of Washington beating New Orleans.
Well, because I just think Mariota versus Cam is going to be a great matchup. I want to watch it. Can't wait.
Interesting.
That's what I usually do. Interesting things.
Well, interesting isn't good. It's just interesting. Continuing on tight ends. I briefly touched on it a second ago. I'm going to go back to him. Michael Bennett, 4,700 in DraftKings, 5,400 in FanDuel. Just a pretty obvious play for a couple of reasons. The Vikings are really good against the pass. However, it's their corners that are good. They do give up a substantial amount of yards and points to the tight end position. You have one of the best tight ends in the league coming in against the Vikings. One of the good things about Bennett is even though Alshon Jeffrey is back, he's still beginning his targets. He actually had double-digit targets 2 weeks ago. He just had 8 targets last week. But we have a resurgent Jay Cutler too. And I'm no fan of Jay Cutler or Andy Dalton. It's going to take me a while for either of these guys. But Jay Cutler has actually been quietly playing some of the best football of his career. He's not turning the ball over. He's getting passes deep very accurately. Alshon Jeffrey just blew up the last game. And they came back and beat the Chargers based on basically Jay Cutler's prowess as the quarterback. It's pretty shocking how well he's been playing. And so the guy that gets the second most touches, there's really only 2 guys in this passing game now that Forte is out with an injury. Langford had a very good showing, and he did have some decent success in the passing game. However, I wouldn't say that's fluky. I say that's more just the fact that San Diego can't cover the running back very well. So I see Michael Bennett against a Vikings team that's going to be putting pressure on Cutler. Cutler's going to be getting rid of the ball to the closest guy, his most reliable receiver close to him.
I don't like this play at all. I think Minnesota's defense is too good. I think this is also a division battle, so this is going to be a very low-scoring game. And I just don't like Alshon Jeffrey's been on fire the last 3 weeks. Jay Cutler has not screwed it up for Chicago, which has kind of been his MO. He usually does blow it in the end. But he's been a great game manager. And I don't think Jay Cutler's ever been called that before. But no, I'm not. For the price you're going to pay for Bennett, I would rather pay a little more for Greg Olsen and get those guaranteed, because I think there's going to be more points in that game as opposed to the Chicago-Minnesota game.
I mean, I gave you the 2 tight ends that get the most targets, Reed and Bennett, outside of Gronk, when you're going to pay, $2,000 more for Gronk. These are guys that are guaranteed to get chances, and for me, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for guys that are getting targets, that are getting touches.
Minnesota's defense is really, really good.
I agree with you, and I feel in part that's why Michael Bennett's going to be a good play.
Or is Michael Bennett going to have to block?
Michael Bennett isn't much of a blocker, though.
I agree, but I'm telling you, the pass rush of Minnesota is really underrated.
Langford, though.
Langford, get out of here.
Langford.
If you played him last week, that's great. Don't ever play him again.
Not this week against the Rams.
Until next season when Matt Forte's not a Bear.
Next?
Nope, nothing. Garrett Selleck.
He
was on a bye, but I win.
Still play him. 2,500 and you're only
score
a little bit. No, this was Bird Coverage. I'm Curtis.
And I'm Joel.
And we'll see you next time.
On the couch.